When Pilar rang the bells in the church of Santa Maria, in the village of Arcos, she could see the people in the square below. During the summer months, there were always a lot of people, especially at 12 o'clock, midday. They looked up at the church bell tower and talked and pointed, but they could not see her. The window was too small and too high. Pilar was a tourist attraction. Perhaps it was truer to say Pilar's bell ringing was a tourist attraction, because the tourists rarely saw Pilar, but everybody knew about Pilar. They knew she was deaf. Occasionally, the tourists tried to see her. The priest, or one of the choir boys, sometimes left the door of the sacristy open. From the sacristy, a curious tourist could open the door of the bell tower and climb the stairs to the top. That was where Pilar lived and spent the days of her life. When she felt the vibration of somebody climbing the wooden stairs, she ran to the door at the top of the stairs and locked it with a large, heavy key. But sometimes she did not detect their footsteps, or she thought it was Mrs. Sanchez, who came once a week to check her wall clock was right. Then the tourists came in and took her photo. They smiled and said things, but Pilar could not hear them. She did not smile. She covered her face and looked away. Pilar rang the bells in Santa Maria Church every hour from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. Her great-grandmother started the family tradition of bell ringing. She used to ring the bells in the clock tower to pay the rent for the small apartment at the top of the tower. Her grandmother followed in the tradition, and then Pilar's mother. When her mother died, Pilar became responsible for telling everybody the time in Arcos de la Frontera by the clock bells. But Pilar was different. The previous bell ringers in the family used to rest at weekends, and then the bells were silent. But Pilar stayed in her tower every day. She never forgot to ring the bells of the village church clock every hour and on the hour 7 days a week, and she never forgot to pull the bell rope the right number of times. 8 times at 8 o'clock, 9 times at 9 o'clock. Pilar never heard the bells, but she felt them through the ropes in her hands. After 6 o'clock, Pilar could go out and buy her food at the grocery shop near the village square. Then she came home and cooked her dinner. Once the mayor and the councillors from the village hall came to see Pilar. They explained she did not need to ring the bells if she did not want to. Pilar found what they said very difficult to understand, so they showed her a picture of a church clock with an electric motor. The bells would ring automatically. They would not need a bell ringer. Pilar shook her head and cried. What would happen if she did not ring the bells? What would the people think of her? The mayor and the councillors sighed and left. That happened many years ago. Few people visited Pilar now. She had no friends. One morning, Pilar got up, but she did not feel well. She looked at the calendar on the wall. It was Sunday, May the 10th. Pilar thought about that date for some time. Then she remembered it was her birthday. Pilar knew she was 70 years old. Pilar looked at the wall clock. It was nearly 8 o'clock in the morning. Pilar rang the bells at 8 o'clock and at 9 and 10 and at 11 o'clock. Then she felt very tired and weak. She looked out of the small window in the bell tower, she saw a blue sky with little white clouds. In the countryside, past the village square, there were hundreds and hundreds of red poppies in the fields. The sun felt warm through the small window. At 12 o'clock midday, Pilar was not in the bell tower. She was walking through the fields of red poppies. She looked back at the village square and the bell tower. What would happen if the bell did not ring, she thought. What will people think of her? But she was too tired to worry any more. There were a lot of tourists in the square. They looked up at the bell tower and pointed. That day, the bell did not ring in the church bell tower of Santa Maria, but they rang in the church of San Bartolomé, and they rang in the church of San Pedro, and they rang in the bell tower of the village hall. But Pilar did not hear them. She just kept on walking through the red poppy fields with the warm spring sun on her face.